Streaming, or visit streaming.afa.net to sign up. Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. That's the name of this show, Today's Issues, on this Wednesday, November the 15th, 2023. In the studio with me is Ed Vitagliano. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
And Fred Jackson.
Hi there, Tim.
And so we three are doing the show today. Let's see, Chris Woodward's out, right?
Yes.
Steve Jordo will be along with us a little bit later on.
Mm-hmm.
And Jan Markell, Fred's going to be on at the bottom of the hour. Why is Jan going to be on, Fred?
Jan's going to be on to react to the number one story in the program today, and that is that huge rally, pro-Israel rally that took place yesterday, the National Mall in Washington, D.C. You know, it's really interesting. If you read some of the other media reports, they say tens of thousands or large crowd. They are now saying it was anywhere from 290,000 to 300,000 that attended that yesterday. It was an amazing sight. Our own John Riley was there. It was great to hear John's on-the-scene reports yesterday. But just watching some of the proceedings, the throng of people there, and they came from all over as well.
Was it a throng?
It was a throng. Somebody says it was one of the largest gatherings of Jewish people and their supporters in recent history. They can't remember when there were that many Jewish people and their supporters that were there. It was an incredible day.
And that had to have been encouraging, I would imagine, to the Jewish population in this country, especially a lot of the college kids who are fear for their safety. But also, hopefully, it's an encouragement for the nation of Israel if they're able to see that kind of support, to know that what they have been seeing on college campuses is not indicative of the way most Americans feel about Israel.
Yeah.
Our own John Riley was there.
Yes. And you know what? There was no property damage. No one tearing things apart there, unlike what I would call the anti-Israel protests that we have seen in the streets of Washington and other cities across the country, university campuses. No violence. It was really a celebration of the Jewish nation and a show of support with what that nation is going through right now in the wake of the Hamas massacre on October the 7th. Wanted to give you just a little example of some of the speeches that we were able to hear yesterday from that rally in Washington.
For years, Satan has been trying to destroy Israel, and he's at it again, but we're not going to let that happen.
It's so sad to see how many people are so willingly ignorant about all of this, and they choose not to see this. So what we're here doing today is so important because we're able to show in people's faces, we're able to show them the truth, and we're able to show them that the Jewish people are not going away. We're not going anywhere.
This is a moment that we're going to tell our grandchildren about. There are over 200 hostages still in Israel, and we feel an obligation to bring them home.
There is no two sides here. This is between the right side, God's side, and savages who worship death.
Well, hey, listen, that's the truth.
It is.
That is the absolute truth. We don't often hear the unvarnished truth coming from the conservative side of the spectrum. You do on our show and our network, but in terms of public statements like that.
That was what would you say? That was a mixed bag of political views that were represented yesterday in Washington, D.C. In terms of the people who were in the audience, I saw John Fetterman, the Pennsylvania Democrat senator. He was wrapped in an Israeli flag attending the event. So you had what I'm saying is you had Democrats and Republicans, conservatives and liberals there in support of Israel. My guess is this is my guess. I haven't seen a survey. My guess is you had predominantly, though, Jews
Mhm.
and Christians
Yes.
who were there. Christians who, especially evangelical Christians in America, who are the backbone of support in this country for Israel,
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
the backbone of
Yep.
support, besides the Jewish people.
And it was interesting. At one point, Chuck Schumer, Senate Majority Leader, who is Jewish, he was one of the main speakers.
Right.
Joni Ernst, Republican senator from Iowa, and the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, gave a speech there. So there was no partisan infighting there over policies, et cetera, et cetera. There was one theme in mind. And I think the other aspect, the other goal is, and some people have been critical of the media. They're telling the story of the Israeli army moving in on Gaza and what it's doing, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But a lot of people said, don't forget the hostages, because it's almost become a sidebar story to all of this. But we're talking close to 240 people.
Right.
Little-
Still
little
being held
kids.
hostage.
Yes, little kids, older people.
So how do you call for a ceasefire from those? You calling for a ceasefire while Hamas holds 240 people against their will, hostages,
Yes,
citizens of Israel, some citizens of the U.S. and other countries,
yes.
holds them hostage,
Mm-hmm.
all the while saying, hey, please stop coming after us.
Yeah.
No, not please, but don't start. Israel needs to stop coming after us.
Mm-hmm.
They need a ceasefire here.
Mhm.
So I think the call for a ceasefire on Israel is, to me, is ridiculous at this point. If Hamas wants to initiate some sort of ceasefire, then they say we'll release all the hostages in return for a ceasefire. You could at least make that offer. I don't necessarily think Israel would go for that either, although I don't know what their stipulations might be. But they're not even. They're just holding innocent people. There's a reason they call them hostages. You know what they are? They're human shields.
Yes.
That's what they are. They're negotiating. They're using innocent people to use as negotiating power against Israel.
Yes.
So that's who Hamas is.
Yeah, and when someone as far left in their politics as Hillary Clinton said early on a couple of weeks ago, there can be no ceasefire, because that just gives Hamas an upper hand to reorganize, rearm, and all of that. So that was Hillary Clinton a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it was one of the few times in my life that I have agreed with her.
Yes, yes, for all of us. As far as on the war front, we are getting reports this morning, and you can go to afn.net for this. Apparently, the Israeli forces have now moved into the major hospital there in northern Gaza, and they are going room to room in this hospital. And basically what they're looking for, yes, they're looking for Hamas terrorists, but they're looking for entrances into the tunnel system that even the United States, the White House confirmed yesterday that there are tunnels beneath these hospitals where Hamas is basically orchestrating this attack.
Yeah. Listen, if Israel was as unnecessarily brutal, that's a mild word to use here, as many in the press and many on the far left and other countries are saying they are, you know what they would do? They would obliterate, I should say, the hospital, and without care who's in there, because the enemy is underneath the hospital.
Yes.
With a bunch of rockets and weapons. So, but yet you're saying no, Israeli soldiers are going into the hospital, but they're not just blowing the whole thing up.
Nope.
Well, if they were committing genocide, just go ahead and blow the whole thing up.
Yes.
Right.
Why do you care
Yes.
about who's in there? Because it should be no concern for you.
And also, they're not only going room to room, but they're taking much needed medical equipment in to neonatal units in the hospital. The Israeli soldiers are doing this.
In the middle of a war.
In the middle of a war, with Hamas sitting
Right.
in the basement wanting
Right.
to kill them.
Right.
They're taking in equipment to help
Yeah.
the hospital.
Hey, listen, Israel is moving at a very fast rate here on the ground in Gaza. In fact, they're being so successful that I saw this because we got a trip in March.
Mm-hmm.
Our Holy Land trip goes in March.
Right.
Okay. So people who are going with us want to know, well, is it going to be open?
Right.
Is Israel going to be open or not? And my son Walker sent me this last night. United Airlines announced that they're going to start flights back to Tel Aviv November 24th.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Next week.
yeah, and then Delta and others will soon follow. So what I'm saying is it's going to be back to life, fairly normal, I guess, within a month or so. Because what I'm saying is Israel's going to have this situation completely and totally under control.
Yeah. And
Okay.
to your point, compared to this time last week, we are starting to see far fewer rockets coming out of Gaza. Remember last week they were coming out?
Yeah.
Tel Aviv
You know
was
why?
being hit.
You know why? It's because Israel's on the ground there with their soldiers,
Yes.
and they see where a rocket comes from,
Mhm.
and they know there's probably a rocket launcher.
Mm-hmm.
No, there is a rocket launcher.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's more where that came from. So now Hamas is in the dilemma of, do we fire a rocket for what? For what purpose? First of all, it's going to be shot down by the Iron Dome. That's almost for certain. Secondly, we're going to give away where our stash is, so to speak, of our munitions. So
You have counter artillery fire, because if you have boots on the ground,
right.
I'm using the kind of language we use around here. They just phone it in. It's on
Right,
grid such
Right,
and such
right,
block,
right,
such
right.
and such building, and they'll
Right.
hit it with a
They'll zero in on
Right.
that. They'll find out what all's there, and then they'll blow it to smithereens.
Yep.
And so Hamas is in a death spiral right now,
Mhm.
and I don't know what they were thinking on October the 6th when they murdered those 12 to 1,400. I've seen various numbers. 1,200.
no on the 7th, October 7th.
Oh, it was October
Yeah.
7th. Excuse me.
Yep.
October 7th. They knew I have to think they thought, they being Hamas, thought we'll murder all these people, and Israel will attack us, and then the Arab world will join us in ending Israel.
Mhm.
That's how this is going to go down.
Mhm.
And that
We'll
ain't,
be heroes.
Huh?
We'll be heroes.
we'll be
That's what
heroes.
Hamas-
And guess what?
Yeah.
That ain't happening.
Here's the other thing that's not happening this time. Israel is not stopping. There
No.
have been skirmishes over
No.
the years. You know, Hamas, Hezbollah will throw some rockets into Israel.
Israel will fire back in it's a day or two story.
That's all it is. But this time, basically, Prime Minister Netanyahu, his government, and the people who live there in Israel said, "We're not going to do this time. We're going to go after."
And the people of Israel are supportive
yes,
of him. You got to cut the head off the snake.
Yep.
Okay. You got to eradicate the threat.
Yes.
That's what you've got to do. And so that's what they're doing. That's what they're not being deterred. They're not being stopped. They are pausing some to let people pass along the way. Do you guys know? I should know this, but do you guys know where these refugees are going, or where these people who are leaving northern Gaza are going? Are they all packed into southern Gaza,
for the
or
most part.
or is Egypt letting them over the border? Because I'd read there was some Red Cross encampments set up there for people, but I can't remember. I thought it was in Egypt, actually.
Egypt, the latest that I've had on that question is that Egypt has allowed people who are nationals from other countries who happen to be in southern Gaza.
You have an American passport or a Canadian passport, you can get through
you
to
can
Egypt.
get through, but they're not allowing many, if any, Palestinians who live in Gaza out.
Gee, why is that?
But they're their Arab brothers.
Mhm. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
You would think Egypt and Saudi Arabia would just welcome these folks with open arms. But,
Right.
but you're telling me they don't want them either.
No. Yeah. Do a survey of
You know-
Lebanon, Syria,
why?
Jordan.
You
Yeah.
know why they don't want them? No, Tim, tell us. I'll answer my own question. Because they don't want Hamas in their countries either.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Egypt just went through a couple of years ago. Remember, suppressing the
Muslim Brotherhood.
Muslim Brotherhood.
Yep.
The Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas are the same thing, like ISIS,
In fact,
like Al Qaeda.
Hamas, I think, is more radical than the Muslim Brotherhood. I think they were a splinter group from the Muslim Brotherhood who were too radical. So they said, no, you're going to have to leave.
You put Hamas in Egypt, they'll be attacking Egyptians before long because they're infidels. They're not, they're
not Muslim enough.
They're not Muslim enough. That's why Egypt and Saudi Arabia and the Jordanians, that they don't want them in their country. And if the average Lebanese person had their rathers, they'd kick Hezbollah out.
Right.
I think there used to be a big Christian presence.
Right.
In Lebanon, which is directly north of Israel. You know, the interesting thing is in reading the Bible, and you go back even to the Old Testament, thousands of years ago, a lot of these places that we're hearing about in the news today are mentioned.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Huh? Lebanon?
Yes.
Yeah.
Damascus, of course, Jerusalem.
Yes.
Egypt.
Yeah.
Is Gaza mentioned in the Bible?
The word Gaza, I don't know.
Okay.
The Philistines, who, by the way, were not Palestinians. I've heard some people say that Philistines and Palestinians are the same thing. The Philistines, I think, historically were considered to be descendants of the Mycenaean Greeks that came in, kind of sea peoples, and set up. But that's to the north of Gaza, just Gaza to the north. So I can't recall whether the name Gaza is mentioned in the Bible. I'm going to check it.
Joppa
and see.
Is there
Even
today?
Ashkelon. It is fascinating when you look at biblical.
Arabia.
Yes, it's all there. Bible talks about
Syria.
Yeah,
Right.
Bible talks about Persia, but that's Iran. So
It had different names maybe, but a lot of the names have existed for thousands of years there.
Yeah.
In the Holy Land,
Apparently
and,
it is.
in the Middle Eastern region.
In the Bible.
Gaza?
King James Bible.
I thought it did. Yeah.
Refers in Acts 8:26, Philip is told to take the road from Jerusalem to Gaza, because I think the word Gaza means desert. So, and then I think in the Old Testament it was called Azza or something. But I see in the
so where in the New
ESV
Testament is Gaza mentioned?
Well, this I'm guessing.
Googled it.
I Googled it. This says in the King James Bible, Acts 8:26, where Philip is told to take the road from Jerusalem to Gaza. It's also in the Old Testament, Amos 1:6. This is the ESV version. Thus says the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Gaza and for 4, I will not revoke the punishment. So that's just also it's the city Samson was imprisoned in after he disobeyed God.
Yeah.
So I guess it is mentioned, but folks, this is a quick Google search. So,
but that's why it's exciting to go to the Holy Land, because you get to see a lot of these places that you've only read about in the Bible.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Bethlehem is still there.
Mm-hmm.
Jericho is still there. It's amazing. One of the other stories that's come out since the October 7th massacre there of Israeli people is the amount of anti-Semitism in this country. Now, we've done stories about this, especially on university campuses, but it has manifested itself in other areas. And there was another example, at least it's being called out as such yesterday. There were 900 Jewish people coming from the Detroit area to the rally yesterday. They
in D.C.?
In D.C.
Okay.
They chartered 3 airplanes. These airplanes picked them up on time and flew them to the Dulles Airport, which is just outside of Washington, D.C. Charter airplanes, they land, and the plan was they had made plans to bus from the Dulles Airport downtown to the mall. Well, they get to the Dulles Airport, they start to get off the airplanes, but there were a whole bunch of buses that were not there. And as the story goes this morning, and Jerusalem Post and some other publications are talking about this, is that a bunch of the bus drivers did a sick-in. They called in sick. And the speculation is, and it was called out at the rally, I understand, that, these bus drivers perhaps were anti-Semite. They heard they were going to be picking up Jews, and they called in sick. We don't know that. That's speculation at this point. But if it's true, how horrible that would be.
But at the rally now, they did characterize that as anti-Semitism.
They did.
Yeah.
They did.
Well, it would be very coincidental for them to all call in sick on the day when they were supposed to pick up busloads of
Jewish people
and drive them to a Support Israel rally.
Yes.
So I suppose coincidences can happen, but it seems unlikely that was the reason for the sick-in.
It'll be interesting to see if the media will call the bus company today, the charter bus company, and see, okay, what kinds of excuses are you going to investigate this sick-in?
I can tell you what the bus company's going to say. Because of HIPAA laws, we are not allowed to discuss the health of our employees. We're not even allowed to ask. We assume they called in sick because they were sick.
Right.
To me, they're wide open to a lawsuit based on racial discrimination.
Yes.
The bus company I'm talking about, if it can be proven, and it sounds like to me the bus drivers. I don't know if they were Arab or Palestinian or what, are sympathizers. They did this intentionally, and they stated it publicly to somebody because word got out that they were doing this on purpose.
Yeah.
Anyway, big rally in Washington D.C. yesterday in Washington for Israel. Approximately 300,000 people.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
I've heard of big crowds in Washington, but I don't think I've heard that big.
Yeah.
Well, the Promise Keepers had nearly 1 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think they have had like what they call million-man marches, but
it's hard to say.
Yeah.
It's hard to determine. You have to look at the picture, an aerial picture, and then decide how far does the crowd go from here to here to here, and then measure
in
it
fact,
off.
the federal government stopped doing estimates because they were getting in trouble with one side or the other.
Right.
Either their estimates were too high or they were too low. So they said, well, guess what? We're not doing it anymore.
It was a big crowd by anybody's estimation.
One thing for sure, I've never seen so many Israeli flags in one spot.
Right.
It was incredible yesterday.
Yeah.
It was great to see.
I want to say, Promise Keepers, if there's been a larger rally in Washington, D.C., I can't remember one. You can by that I mean you can verify looking at aerial pictures where the crowd stretched to from Weddington to.
And they see how densely the crowd is packed. That's how they do the estimates, and they probably have grids, and they say, here's densely packed. That's 100 people.
And then they do tests to see how dense the people really are.
That's right.
They do tests like that too.
Yes.
All right.
The IQ test.
We're going to be back momentarily. Jan Markell. If there's a super fan of Israel in the U.S., Jan is the chairman of that club.
Yeah.
Okay. President of that club. So Jan Markell, host of Understanding the Times, will be with us momentarily, and we got other news stories to talk about headed your way. So join us back here in a couple of minutes.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
There's a sentence in the book of books which reads like this: For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Experience is a great teacher, and all of us have had the experience of being a stranger on occasion. We can remember on those occasions how much we wanted someone to show us a little kindness. Being kind to another makes life enjoyable. It enriches the soul of the person showing kindness, and wins the heart of the recipient. So a kind act helps at least 2 people, possibly and probably more. Greatness of soul isn't measured by genius, fame, or fortune. It's measured by kindness. Stephen Grellet once wrote, "I shall pass through this world but once. Any good, therefore, that I can do, or any kindness that I can show to any human being, let me do it now. Let me not defer nor neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again." I believe also that being kind to another brings kindness in return. There's a law of life which is stated like this: we reap what we sow. Most of us are aware of what happens when kindness isn't used. Harold Sandall put it this way: any kindness that is never used but hidden alone will slowly harden till it is hard as any stone. Do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. It's called the Golden Rule. It's a wonderful way of living. Be kind to others because you want them to be kind to you. Kindness is also the best persuasion we have. Now, our speech may be good and interesting, and we need to use interesting and informative words, but one act of kindness often speaks louder than 1,000 words. Frederick Faber once said, "Kindness has converted more sinners than zeal, eloquence, and learning." And that's true. The ministry of kindness is a ministry which may be achieved by all people, rich or poor, learned or illiterate, young or old. Brilliance of mind and capacity for deep thinking have rendered great service to humanity, but by themselves they are impotent to dry a tear or mend a broken heart. Whatever a person has to say, it does not mean much unless it is backed by action. And for many of us who have trouble getting our words to come out right, we found a simple act of kindness gets the job done. The stranger who sojourns with you shall be to you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. We've all been strangers in the land of Egypt. We know how much kindness is wanted and needed and appreciated. Let us, therefore, be as kind to others as we would wish they were to us. Edgar Guest, the poet, he had a way of expressing profound thoughts in simple words, and he wrote this down one time. When I see a deed of kindness, I'm eager to be kind. When a weakened brother stumbles and a strong man stays behind just to see if he can help him, then the wish grows strong in me to become as big and thoughtful as I know that friend can be. And all travelers can witness that the best of guides today is not the one who tells them, but the one who shows the way.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves. Colossians 1:13.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. If you want to send us an email, you can do so, as long as it's a K-Love email. We talk about this often, and that is positive and encouraging. Okay, we don't need any negative vibes here.
Right.
Okay. So send it to comments@afr.net, comments@afr.net, comments@afr.net. What we need to do is get an alternative email.
For the negative
We can talk
stuff?
about this later.
Yeah.
Get an alternative email, and that way we give it out for people who don't want to criticize us.
Oh, and it goes like to a black
Junk
hole
box that nobody checks.
If you have a critical email, send it to
Right.
And
comments at AFR #2.net.
And then we send the addresses for those emails to the NSA.
That might be carrying a little too far. I didn't mean to get them in trouble with the government.
Folks, I'm just kidding. We would never side
we would never do
with
that.
those guys.
Of course.
All right, Trivia Friday will be Friday, and we look forward to talking to you then. Maybe we'll have a Gaza question, huh?
That was a good question,
good.
and I've had a couple folks text me and say, Gaza's in the Bible.
Yeah.
In parentheses, dummy.
And you call yourself a pastor.
Yeah. I'm just kidding for those who texted me.
All right,
I love
Israel superfan Jan Markell joins us now from great state of Minnesota. She is the president of Olive Tree Ministries and also host of Understanding the Times, heard weekends live here on America. Well, maybe not necessarily live, but heard weekends here on American Family Radio. Saturdays at 1 p.m. Central Time and Sundays at 12 p.m. Central Time.
Very popular show.
Yes, it is. Jan, good morning to you.
Well, thank you for having me, gentlemen.
Your reaction to the Israel rally in Washington yesterday?
Perhaps I'm out of words. Perhaps I'm speechless. Perhaps it took me a little while to recover from quite a moving event. And as one of the people in the audience, in the crowd, was interviewed and said, "We Jews are never going away." And I said, "Well, you're quoting the Bible." I said that to myself. I wish I could have talked right to her. Jeremiah 31, as long as you see the sun and the moon and the stars, there'll always be a nation of Israel and the Jewish people.
Jan, were you surprised by the size of the crowd? There was an expectation of 100,000, but we're hearing 300,000 this morning. It was amazing.
I am. I guess I was even surprised that they were anticipating 100,000. But you know what? Every now and then Christians, and by the way, lots and lots of Christians turned out. I mean, it was not all Jews. It was, I don't know the exact proportion. Obviously, I wasn't there, but the fact that a great number of Christians turned out is very, very encouraging, because I think, obviously, with the rise of this terrible anti-Semitism, some of that gets even into our churches. Thankfully, not a lot, but some does. And then there's some theology that isn't very helpful to the Jewish people, replacement theology, and some of the others that we'd have to discuss in detail. Therefore, it's just encouraging when you see the right thing being done instead of so much of the world going down the wrong path. So it'll take me a few days to recover just from, and I don't mean that in a negative way at all, but and as I was talking with one of your reporters, Chad Groening, I could tell he felt the same way. And I think a lot of Christians, certainly if they're pro-Israel, were very, very, very moved and very happy.
And Jan, like you said, in light of the very open and blatant anti-Semitism in this country, which I'll admit, I was a little bit shocked by it. Not a whole lot. I'm not naive. I knew that the Marxist ideology had made a great deal of headway, quote-unquote progressive ideology on our nation's college and university campuses. And my understanding is that those lenses that look at everything in terms of oppressor and oppressed had been applied to Israel vis-a-vis the Palestinians. I knew that was there. I knew we have it's not a huge population of Muslims in this country. It's not, like places like France or cities like London where they're in big trouble because of it. But so I didn't. It's a relatively small percentage in this country. However, the images of some of these rallies. So I say all that to say that was that took me back. I'm guessing the perception, maybe for a lot of Jews in this country, was, wow, we didn't realize anti-Semitism had made such inroads. And so to have a rally like this to kind of flip that perception over and give some encouragement, I agree. I would think that for Jewish people of all political stripes in America, that was probably very heartening.
Yeah, it was. In what I'm monitoring of the Jewish community, and let me just throw in a kind of a caveat here that I'm hearing anyway that the Jewish community is just outraged and appalled at what they're. Remember, they're heavily leftist thinking people, but they are appalled at what they're seeing from their fellow leftists. They're having an incredible wake-up call, the Jews of America, and maybe Europe too. I don't know so much there, but an incredible wake-up call that their companions on the left, they're not, they're speechless. Now don't ask me how they can be unaware of all this, because you'd think in everyday conversation they'd be aware that most people on the left don't care about Israel, even are hostile to Israel. Jewish Americans are having a wake-up call that their companions on the left, well, they're shocked and they're disappointed.
Well, so in light of that, let me ask you this. You've studied Scripture on these issues and paid attention in terms of the geopolitics involved. Do you think what you just talked about in terms of Jews who are on the left, even some who might be conservative in this country, in Europe, do you think what they have seen over the last several weeks, last month or so, do you think that's going to spur more movement back to the nation of Israel on the part of international Jewish population?
Absolutely. It already is. Even amidst the horror that the whole world has observed in the last almost 6 weeks, the Jews fleeing back to the homeland, back to Israel, it's astounding. They realize that they're not safe anywhere. They might as well go back to a homeland that. Now, I mean, is this an astounding proportion? No. However, it's far more than was going on, let's say, a year ago, 2 years, 5 years ago. So, again, God works good out of evil always, and I think this is one of the things that when we look back on the fallout from October the 7th, 2023, let's say a year from now, even 2-3 years from now, one of the things that will shock us is the number of Jews that ran, if I can say it, home to Israel. And by the way, if I could just throw this in very quickly, I had Michelle Bachmann on this weekend, and Michelle's going everywhere talking about some of the deeper implications of what's happened here in the last nearly 6 weeks. She's got incredible perspective from Washington, from other places. So she and I will talk about it Saturday and Sunday on American Family Radio. I encourage folks to tune in.
All right. Jan, just one more question. We're getting reports in the last day or so that amongst the Hamas terrorists that entered into Israel on October the 7th, kids as young as 10 years old were with the Hamas terrorists. Is that something that should shock us?
Fred, I don't think so, but you're right. And the Israeli media I'm reading, there have been two shockers. The one we're talking about is certainly one that children, teens, and even women were a part of the invasion. And I think the other story that's just heartbreaking and shocking is CNN, the AP, New York Times, and I believe Reuters all had reporters a part of the invasion, and they were accompanying the terrorists, taking pictures of a lot of things that were going on. Fred, I think of the Bible verse, and I believe it's Matthew 24. I could have my reference wrong here. Love growing cold, and obviously how any human being can be participating in something like this. A willing participant, in some cases even participating in some of the deadly deeds. You just wonder what has happened to humanity. And I think love has grown cold, and I think we're seeing an end-time type of behavior and mindset that, again, reprobate mind, Romans 1. How else do you describe what we've seen in recent weeks? It's beyond my understanding.
Mm-hmm. All right. We encourage you to join Jan and her guest, Michelle Bachmann, this weekend on American Family Radio. Again, Jan's show, Understanding the Times, airs Saturday at 1 p.m. Central Time and Sunday at noon Central Time, right here on American Family Radio. How long have you been on the air with us now? 10 years, something like that?
Tim, I do believe we're going on 10 years, and it's the classic illustration of time flies when you're having a good time.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Thank you, Jan. Take care. Have a good day.
Take care, Jan.
Bye now.
Bye.
Yeah.
It's Jan Markell.
That's a good segment.
Yeah, I tell you what, she's going to have Michelle Bachmann on. If you want an exciting program,
Those two ladies
this weekend, you should listen to that. Michelle Bachmann, so experienced. She was a member of Congress. She led delegations to the Middle East, including into the Palestinian territories. She can talk about the curricula in the schools amongst the Palestinians, a curriculum that says hate the Jews, that there ought not to be a Jewish nation. So if you're wondering why there would be 10-year-olds with the Hamas terrorists, that's the reason why. They are taught from day one to absolutely hate the Jewish people.
And Michelle Bachmann she's kind of a force of nature. She's full of energy and a very courageous woman. And I will say this about her. I don't know her personally, but just having watched her, we've interviewed her. She's a godly woman, and she has remained faithful to the Lord and busy doing God's work as long as I've heard the name Michelle Bachmann.
Yep. She doesn't stop. Right. Doesn't stop at all.
I do know her personally.
Okay.
And I can confirm. I don't know her. We don't have each other's text numbers, but I know her.
Yeah.
Talked to her at conferences and conventions and such. And I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know. I didn't ask Jan, but I mean, she'd be a perfect fit for Jan's, when Jan retires, whatever, to take over the Olive Tree Ministries.
Yeah.
I'm sure Jan knows this already. I don't have to tell her. Really, Tim? You think so? That's why she's on every other week with me.
Well, and the I have no idea who Jan's got in mind, but the positive of what you just suggested is that Michelle already lives in the tundra of Minnesota during the winter.
Frozen tundra.
Yeah, so you don't have to convince somebody who's from Florida to come up to Minneapolis and
join us.
We'd
like for you to come up here in January and visit. and
skate on over.
Skate on over. Check out a house. All right, you're listening to today's issues. By the way, houses. Did you guys have basements?
Yes.
You mean growing up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Growing up in New England, growing up in Nova Scotia, did you guys have basements?
Oh yeah. That's where you put your furnace.
Yeah, and you don't want your pipes to be on the ground. So the basements, and Fred knows this too,
the reason I
serve as a way to keep all that warm. And you put we had an oil furnace, a big oil.
Well, that's the reason I ask. Our base. We were talking about life in Minnesota, especially during the winter. And I remember I visited in Minnesota a couple times and a couple houses, and they had basements. And I'm wondering if you get into the more you get south of the Mason-Dixon line, you don't see basements so much.
And part of
I'm wondering if is it common? Or is almost everybody got a basement?
I think so, because first of all, down south, water table is usually a little bit higher. So having a basement is a real problem just because of water seepage. But the depth of your water lines, I think, I don't know, up north it's probably 18 inches or something. You have to keep it down pretty deep to keep those water lines from freezing. Just when they run.
From freezing,
Yeah. So the water lines coming in, if it's 18 inches or 2 feet, whatever it is, in Minnesota, I have no idea. That was probably colder than New England. It's got to go somewhere, and so basements are ideal for your heating and also for keeping your pipes from freezing.
They're about 8 feet usually, the foundation. It's about 8 feet, so it's you put your rec room down there.
Yeah,
and
had a ping pong table down there.
Oh yeah,
and we had a what we called a bulkhead, which was the way from the outside into your cellar. Was the double flip open doors leading into the steps down, and there's a doorway down there.
Yeah, and if you don't have any room, it's a great place to play hockey.
I played a fair amount of street hockey down there.
The double doors. You mean the like you see outside?
Yeah,
I thought that was a tornado shelter.
Well, it looks like that.
Okay,
but it goes down into your cellar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
cellar being different than a basement?
No.
A cellar is part of the basement.
Same thing.
I think of a cellar, I think of food storage.
Well, you could. I mean, if you could do that, we always called it the cellar, the cellar.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going down to the cellar. We're playing ping pong.
Okay, I got you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's also the same as the basement.
Some people call it basement. Some people call it cellar.
Mm-hmm.
Some people call it cellar.
Cellar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But I had a little hockey net down there, and
so somewhere to play in the winter when you couldn't go out. You know.
Yeah.
I know.
Mostly when it's rainy or snowy or stormy.
Yeah.
We played outside a lot, even in the winter.
That's right.
You have to.
We played tackle football. I was in high school. We would play tackle football out on the street, and nothing was better than plowing your buddy into a snowbank, a 5-foot snowbank, after he makes a catch.
Yes.
Tackle?
Yep, tackle football.
On the frozen asphalt.
Yep. Well, it was snow.
You couldn't see the asphalt.
Packed, sometimes packed snow.
You got to be hardy when you live in those climates.
Right,
Talk about go outside. Snowstorm, as soon as the snowstorm is over, you go out and dig tunnels in the...
Yeah.
Because we had snowbanks up to almost the second story of the house.
Because the plows had come by and storm after storm.
Yeah.
And I have pictures of me on the snowbank right at the end of our driveway. And it's probably 7 or 8 feet, and I'm a kid up there. It's a blast.
Okay. What I'm sensing, though, is there's a reason you guys are in Mississippi.
There is now.
For the last part of your life.
Well, people have asked me, do you have some places in mind for retirement?
Right.
I said, I have some place in mind where I'm not going.
Yes, absolutely.
Come retire in Manitoba.
I will say this. I have said this before on the air. 2-3 years ago, I loved it when winter hit because I still loved cold weather. Now I'm getting to the age where I go, this is crazy. I actually, for the first time in my life in Mississippi, and I've been married
and
to
we don't have cold weather like they experience up north.
No.
Yeah, obviously.
My wife and I, she's from Mississippi. We've been married since 81. I've been in Mississippi since 85. And for the first time in all those years, I said out loud in January, I can't wait for summer. Because summers down here are pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Yes.
It can be.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm just going to buy a motorhome.
Yeah.
And I'm going to move with the climate.
Move with the climate.
Yeah, there you go.
So climate changes, Fred's on the move.
I change.
Yeah.
Climate changes, I change.
I change. Fred goes where the warm destination is.
No apology. No apology.
Yeah, I hear you, brother. Okay. You're listening to the program Today's Issues. Next story, Fred.
Well, our president, Joe Biden, is in San Francisco.
Does he know it?
Far as I know, he's been told where he is.
Okay.
Now, he was a little
he was told to go there.
He was a little confused when they drove him through the streets of San Francisco because he was expecting homeless people.
Mm-hmm.
But they've cleaned all that up. This is no joke, folks. They hand washed the streets where the homeless people were, and they came along with buses and moved all the homeless people to Oakland for a few days.
Wonder what they had to pay Oakland to take them.
It sounds like a joke. When you said that in the morning story meeting,
well,
I thought, does Oakland know they did this?
Well, they had to. The pictures now of the streets are nice and clean, so they had to go somewhere.
Yeah,
and that's what Fox was reporting this morning. They took them to Oakland
because you got all these international leaders, including the president of China, in town for the. Is it the Pacific?
It is the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, better known as APEC.
Right, APEC meeting there in San Francisco. So they cleaned it up. I'm sure it'll go back to filthy normal.
Oh yeah.
When these leaders go home.
Yeah.
But President Biden is there.
He's there, and he says he wants to do a reset with the Chinese and improve the relationship together. So I'm going to play you a little cut of President Biden, but also comments from Republican Senator Tom Cotton. And he's afraid of what Biden might give away. Cut number 1.
To get back on a normal course of corresponding, being able to pick up the phone and talk to one another if there's a crisis, being able to make sure our military still have contact with one another. We're not trying to decouple from China, but what we're trying to do is change the relationship for the better.
What Joe Biden has projected all year long, though, is this desire to have any small indication of progress, just the fact that they want to pick up the phone. I worry a little bit about what concessions he might grant, or just the way he framed this summit meeting is that we want to improve our relationship. We don't have a relationship with China. It's not like these are two teenagers dating. China is our #1 adversary in the world.
Sure.
And what we should be doing is focusing on ways that we can get the better of China to stop them from cheating on their trade deals or hacking into U.S. government computers or floating spy balloons over America, none of which I'm sure Joe Biden is going to raise with Xi Jinping today.
Well, I'm just going to say this may sound harsh. I'm not trying to be provocative here. I don't trust communists. I don't trust radical Muslim terrorists. I don't trust communists. And I think that the Biden administration, for whatever reason, I don't know whether it's because he personally has benefited from business deals in China or his family has. I don't know whether those things are true or not. Okay. But if President Biden is having these meetings with Xi Jinping and is expecting China to play right or to behave themselves, he's loony.
Yep.
These are communists bent on taking over the world with their ideology, and we stand in their way. They are going to undermine us and do whatever they can to get an advantage over us. And while we can do business with them, we need to make sure that whatever business we do does not put us behind the 8 ball. So that means we get other sources for our pharmaceuticals, for our rare earth metals, and do not put us in a situation where if China turns off the spigot, we're in trouble, because they will if they can get an advantage over us. Yes. I don't trust them. And it sounds like President Biden hopes, like Senator Cotton was saying, that we can just be like a couple of teenagers dating. We have a couple of arguments, but then we make up and go on business as usual. No, not with communists.
No.
I agree with everything you said. Can I be the liberal?
Absolutely. Please take some pressure off me.
Okay, you're usually the liberal.
I am
on here. I agree with everything Senator Cotton from Arkansas said. Everything you said. We always have to be skeptical of what the communists, wherever they are, because they hate capitalism. They hate democracy as a form of government. However, here's the liberal part. I agree with Biden on what he said. I don't know what he means by it, but just his words. In other words, not in other words. Well, play what he said. Now, this is, don't get me wrong. I don't agree with Biden on much of anything.
Right.
And I don't even know if he knows exactly what he means by this statement, but I'm just at face value.
I hear what you're saying. Call me lover. Go ahead. Let's play it.
To get back on a normal course of corresponding, being able to pick up the phone and talk to one another if there's a crisis, being able to make sure our military still have contact with one another.
All right, stop right there. That's what I agree with.
Okay. I don't disagree with what you're saying. Do you remember the movie Patton with George C. Scott?
Yeah.
Remember there was a scene after World War II is over where the Russians and the Americans were having a big get-together after the surrender of Germany.
Yeah.
And Patton and his Russian counterpart, Soviet counterpart, have a drink together with their arms through each other. And they're both staring at one another, having a drink, celebrating the victory. We're going to rebuild Europe. But neither one of them trusted the other. And I agree with what you're saying. Let's have trade. Let's pick up the phone and talk. But I'm watching you and you're watching me.
Yeah. We'll be back in a minute. 5 minutes, actually. Stay with us. More liberalism coming your way.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
So I found a dress for the party. Awesome. Not really. I went to try it on, but Emma, there was a man in there. A man? I told customer service, but they said It's our policy. What?
Target allows men into women's restrooms and changing areas. The American Family Association is calling for a boycott of Target until they reverse this misguided policy. Sign the pledge at afa.net.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin has announced he will not seek re-election. Does that mean he's considering a presidential bid?
Will you run for president?
It's not about me. It's not about the next election. I keep telling people this is a movement.
Are you thinking about running for president?
I don't know what the future lies. I know that we can't continue the direction we're going.
People feel politically homeless.
I feel politically homeless.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Fox News contributor Joe Concha agrees that Manchin is politically homeless.
And the problem for Joe Manchin is Democrats don't trust him because he was against, remember, Build Back Better, trillions of dollars in spending. He was the guy who effectively stopped it in the Senate with Kyrsten Sinema. Republicans don't trust him because then he supported the Inflation Reduction Act, or whatever they call it, and then afterwards says, no, actually, I opposed it. I didn't realize what was in the bill. So, yes, he doesn't have a home at this point. He'll probably end up on a no-labels ticket like we talked about. Larry Hogan, Mitt Romney, they're talking that kind of combination. That ticket can't win, but it can spoil. And whenever you're the incumbent, the more people in a race, the more it hurts the incumbent.
A teacher strike continues in Portland, Oregon, with several issues remaining unresolved. Dan Springer has more from Seattle.
The two sides are a bit closer, but still about $200 million apart. The 3,700 teachers in Portland are demanding an 18% pay raise over the next 3 years and 2 fewer days of teaching so they can spend that time on lesson planning and grading. The district says the best it can do is 10.5% raise, and even doing that will force $100 million in budget cuts, which of course means younger teachers getting laid off. And this is happening in a state that kept kids out of the classroom during COVID longer than just about every other state. The learning loss was so significant, students may not catch up for years, if ever.
A tentative contract agreement between General Motors and the United Auto Workers Union could be going down in flames.
United Auto Workers at General Motors plants across the country are saying no to a contract agreement that included a 25% pay raise and other benefits. Now awaiting totals from a large assembly plant in Arlington, Texas, with the expectation that the contract will be voted down over demands for more money and job protections. A blow to the UAW and to the automaker, forcing them back to the bargaining table as UAW workers at Ford and Stellantis appear to be voting in favor of contract deals reached following the union's over 6-week strike against the Big Three that cost automakers over $10 billion in economic losses. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
Las Vegas teenagers who ganged up on and beat a 17-year-old to death could be charged as adults. William Lajeunesse has more from Los Angeles.
Police say 10 teens are actually involved, 8 are in custody, and officials are looking through additional video to positively identify the other 2. They also say that during searches of the suspects' homes, police say they've obtained clothing the teens wore during the assault, which of course is going to help determine what criminal charges they face. The fight started after someone stole a pair of wireless headphones and a vape pen from Jonathan Lewis or a younger friend that he was defending. That's when Lewis and the alleged thief agreed to fight after school. Lewis died 6 days later of head injuries with his parents by his side.
A monumental victory in Europe. Chris Woodward explains.
A Finnish member of parliament has been found not guilty of hate speech for tweeting a Bible verse and other expressions of faith. Pavi Rasanen's case has been going on for years, due in part to a prosecutor that would not let it go. Talking about this on Washington Watch, attorney Christian Wagner of Alliance Defending Freedom said the case highlights the need for people to stand for their rights.
You know, many of the nations throughout Western civilization have had constitutions or laws that protect free speech, religious freedom, but those laws aren't worth the paper they're written on if the citizens become apathetic or don't enforce them, as Pivy did here.
ADF International helped represent Rosanen, a long-standing member of government that Wagner said is very loved and was recently reelected.
So they're sending a message to the average person in Finland that if we can get her, we can get you as well. We have to stand, and I think it's worth noting, the prosecutor can still appeal this verdict as well. We're hoping that the prosecutor general will choose not to do so.
I'm Chris Woodward.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
Snickers is running an unnecessarily vulgar commercial that makes light of sin and swinging. The commercial features two couples playing a board game where a misunderstanding leads to one person expressing interest in wife swapping. It's poor taste to make light of such an indecent topic, especially when aired on family-friendly television. Join us at 1 Million Moms to get Snickers to stop its inappropriate marketing campaigns. Sign the petition at 1millionmoms.com. That's 1millionmoms.com.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim here. Tim Wildman with Ed Battaglione.
Ed Battagliano?
That. Don Corleone.
Don
Ed
Corleone.
Steve Paisley Jordahl.
Good
morning, Steve.
Battaglio.
I just cut it short,
Yeah.
That's what
We
Trump
all
said.
have nicknames. You guys have nicknames growing
Well,
up?
Trump just Trump just
like not mean ones.
I had a couple mean ones. But most of in high school I was VTAG.
Yeah, my friends and I had nicknames all over. I was the Rock. I was Rock because I drove fast and drove like a rocket. They said.
But one of the mean ones, which it was, next thing that happened was fisticuffs.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But the slur for homosexuals.
Yes.
That got added to my name.
Your last name?
Yeah, last name.
Oh.
I don't want to mention the slur.
No, it's just a bundle of words.
Did that leave scars?
No, it didn't. It's just it did on someone. If somebody said it, somebody got scars. Sometimes it was me. Sometimes it was the other guy. But
I was going to say that Trump calls Governor DeSantis Sanctus now.
Yeah. Just Sanctus
for short, huh? Just Sanctus.
Listen. High school boys are basically idiots. So
I'm talking about a 78-year-old man.
I was going back to my high school.
Oh,
years.
I'm sorry.
You're staying more current.
Yeah.
Hey, before we get started, let me let our listeners know this is National Collection Week for the Operation Christmas Child. So, encouraging you to pack your shoebox now with any standard size shoebox for Operation Christmas Child. Drop it off during this week. I think it goes till the 20th. Shoeboxes will be collected across the country at more than 4,500 drop-off locations. So if you're familiar with Operation Christmas Child and the purpose of the shoeboxes, any standard size shoebox will do. All you have to do to get more information about this is to go to SamaritansPurse.org/OCC. That stands for Operation Christmas Child. To learn more and to find a drop-off location near you, a lot of churches are doing the pickup for people. SamaritansPurse.org/OCC. You can find out what you put in it, how you pack it, that kind of thing, as well as some great testimonies about the impact these shoeboxes have in the lives of children all across the world. SamaritansPurse.org/OCC.
I don't know who had the idea for the shoebox.
I thought it was you. Don't you usually
Distribution.
claim credit for good ideas?
No, my dad did when I had them.
In fact, that's such a joke. That's such a joke around here because he did that. But whenever everyone has a good idea around here, one of us invariably says, "I was just thinking about that."
Yeah. Well, I was just that's just a joke. My dad was a very humble man. In all sincerity, he was.
And you know what? He was such a visionary.
Yeah.
He probably was thinking about it before you.
Yeah. But there are times over our 30 whatever it was years in ministry. Of course, he was present, but I would go into his office and say, "Hey, Dad, I got this idea. We need to do this, that, or the other," and he would say, "Yeah, I was just thinking about that the other day," and I would think, "I don't care. It's my idea." I wouldn't say it. This would be the cloud out from my head.
Yeah,
Yes, no, don't tell me you thought of it before I did, because it was a great idea, and I wanted to come and you to say, Son, I'm proud of you. That was a wonderful idea you have right there, and we're going to implement it.
Don't we? We all grew up wanting to hear that.
Well, you know, Tim, I was thinking about that the other day. That great idea you have. Anyway, I was maybe like father, like son, right?
Yeah, right.
Anyway.
In the summer of 1993, Samaritan's Purse President Franklin Graham received a call from a man in England asking if he'd be willing to fill shoeboxes with gifts for children in Eastern Europe. Franklin agreed, but figured Christmas was months away. He forgot about the promise until he received a call back around Thanksgiving asking about the gifts. So he asked his friend, the late Pastor Ross Rhodes of Calvary Church in Charlotte, to see if he could help him with a need. Sunday afterwards, Pastor Rhodes demonstrated for his Congress how to fill a shoebox, and the rest is history.
You can do such investigative journalism so quick, Steve. I'm just,
Yeah. I'm that good.
Go ahead. What you gonna say?
Well, I was just going to say I had been thinking about doing those shoebox things back in 1992.
Right.
I wish I had done something with it.
Long before Franklin Graham got the idea.
That's right.
From somebody else. Hey, listen, on a more serious note, and this is, did you guys see, there's a story yesterday.
Talking about shoeboxes.
Yeah. Shoeboxes, yeah.
Boxes.
This was out of Memphis, Tennessee. Help me, operator.
Memphis, Tennessee. It was a FedEx truck that was stopped at a red light.
Calling Memphis, Tennessee. That was the second line there.
Oh,
yeah. You see what I'm saying? See what I did there? Okay, in Memphis, which ironically is the international headquarters for FedEx, they have a semi truck that's at an intersection. A FedEx delivery truck. It's got all kind of boxes and stuff in the back of it. Well, the guy is, this says a FedEx tractor trailer was blocked by several cars in Memphis intersection before dozens of people pillaged the back of the truck for packages, leaving boxes discarded all over the road during the brazen weekend theft. Steve, do you know, were the cars blocking the truck part of the hit job? Is that what happened?
That's what they think. Yes, the people that blocked the intersection got out of the cars and started ransacking the truck.
Yeah, the reason I brought this up, I've never seen. There is 2 days ago there was a UPS driver in California. I think was it California? A UPS driver.
I remember seeing.
Delivered a package, walked up to the house, comes back, walking back to his truck.
It was a woman, I think.
A woman, and here are these guys going through the back of her UPS truck.
Yeah. The brazenness of the thievery now is takes your breath away, because this looks like, and I don't know how bright these people are.
You're talking about the FedEx truck?
I'm talking about the FedEx truck in
Memphis. Yeah.
Okay, which I'm sorry,
in a major intersection,
is starting to become a very dangerous place for anyone to go. Okay, but they're going to catch, unless these people thought ahead and remove their license plates. There's usually cameras that are going to catch the vehicles, and if these people are jumping in with boxes and speeding off, they're going to catch some of these folks. But the brazenness of this is just breathtaking.
Okay, the UPS driver was in Maryland.
Yeah,
had her truck. No, listen to this. Last week, a Maryland UPS driver had her truck stolen during this is different than the other UPS story, during a broad daylight armed carjacking as she was delivering packages. I'm going to tell you something. These companies like FedEx and UPS, they're going to start telling people we don't deliver to your neighborhood, and I'm sorry, because it's too dangerous.
Well, listen, we've all seen Westerns. Remember the stagecoaches that get held up? This is the same kind of brazenness, and they used to have to send people with the stagecoach to ride shotgun. That's where we get that.
I didn't know that
expression comes from.
That's right.
You're going to ride. You're the passenger, driving, helping the driver with the stagecoach. You're riding shotgun
because you're carrying a shotgun.
Because you're carrying a shotgun to protect it. That's what if they do deliver in the inner cities, they're going to have armed guards.
Yeah, because think about it. You know, these drivers are by themselves. Huh?
Yeah. And they have to get out and leave their vehicle.
They have to get out and leave their vehicle. And most of them, you know, if the weather's good enough. They don't even have their door closed.
Right.
They're riding with the door open so that make it easy to get in and out.
Because they expect to encounter only decent people.
And it may be a
these
dog
people
here and there.
Yeah. These people are not decent people. They're thieves.
If you were a FedEx or a UPS driver in these cities like Memphis, I'm not doing that.
No, because you know what? The prosecutors are going to say, look, they took 2 boxes. That's not worth our time.
That's right.
So
the cops are going to say, was anybody killed?
Right.
No.
Was it over X number of thousands of dollars? Then
Right.
we're not going to prosecute. And furthermore, what's going to happen is that FedEx, UPS are going to say to their drivers, don't stop them. We don't want a lawsuit.
Oh,
And
I agree with that.
That's going to make these thieves even more brazen.
Yeah, because they know they're not going to be confronted by the driver. Because the driver, you don't want the driver's putting their life at risk.
Right. And most drivers are going to say, I'm not.
They're not going to do it anyway.
Right.
And they're not going to let them carry a weapon, right?
No.
So you're
After
saying
I
that they're
said
just, and these thieves know this, so it's open season. They
After
don't
I
care.
said it, I realized, no, they're not going to let anybody ride shotgun.
No, I know that.
They may have to have a way to lock their truck while they're gone to deliver to a door, but then they're just going to assault the driver and say, open it up or else.
But you know who does carry weapons? These Loomis or whatever they're called. These
the like Brinks.
They
pick up the cash.
The cash at the banks. And
Yep.
They do.
They do.
They have armed guards.
Right.
Why do they let them do that? They won't let.
I guess the amount of money is so.
Well, also
large.
UPS and FedEx, for example, they don't want their drivers being. I'm assuming they're not armed.
No.
They don't want their drivers being armed because if they were to get in an altercation and they were in the wrong, or they
right,
it doesn't even matter if they're in the wrong in today's world.
Those Brinks truck drivers or Loomis, they're trained. They probably have enhanced carry permits. They have to go to the gun range.
Right. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm
You can't
sure.
have all your drivers.
But what this will do is it'll make they'll just say FedEx or UPS, Steve will just say, you know what, we don't deliver in Memphis anymore. It's too dangerous. We don't deliver in Birmingham. We don't deliver in Washington D.C.
Or you got to come down to the airport and pick up your package.
Which defeats the whole purpose.
That's right.
Same thing.
That's the same as U.S. mail. Or
Yeah.
even more inconvenient.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do because between now and Christmas, this is going to be an almost daily occurrence.
The mailmen don't have a choice, though.
Right. Somewhere in the country, because people are going to see this and they're going to talk about it, and you're going to start seeing this everywhere between now and Christmas because they know it's Christmas presents for the most part that are in these trucks.
Yeah. Anyway, I was stunned at the brazenness of this, and I wondered. I'm talking about the FedEx 18-wheeler in Memphis. I wondered how in the world does that happen? You're only at a red light for what, maybe 60 to 120 seconds?
Yeah, but that's why
one
they
or 2
blocked,
minutes.
That's why they blocked it.
Okay, so this was a planned.
That's what I think. It's
Yeah.
clearly.
And then the bottom of the article, it says the police were called, and they did catch a couple of these kids.
Yeah, but
there were young people.
Yeah.
Like Ed said, most of these big cities, nothing's done with them. They don't get punished. They get a slap on the wrist.
I'm just going to tell you, this goes back to what we've said. Some people may think this is just too convenient, an explanation, but you don't. If you don't have a dad in the home, you're going to have people. Listen, I did things that I wasn't supposed to when I was in high school. All right, but something like this, my dad would have killed me. All right, that's why I never.
These are all black kids who don't have dads. I'm just telling you, they're inner city black kids who don't have dads, never, and they don't have that luxury.
That's right.
Huh?
That is what's driving this. I knew kids who might have pilfered some. I never stole anything from a store. Like some of my friends, I took a pack of M&Ms or something like that. I knew kids in high school who smoked pot. I never did any of those kinds of things because I knew if I got caught, I was dead.
Oh, sure.
I was dead. My dad would kill me. And that
also, you had an internal moral compass that was taught to you by your parents,
Right.
parents plural,
right.
and reinforced at church, at school, in the community. That's no longer in existence in much of America, not just the inner city.
Right.
But it's a real problem. You know, people say, well, why would you mention the racial component? Because almost all these robberies are committed by black kids, black males between the ages of, say, 13 and 30.
So
hold on, just let me finish. That demographic is what you see over and over and over and over and over again. Not so much the young ladies. So you have these high testosterone. You have males, high testosterone, very aggressive, right? Especially in that age category. And then they don't have fathers. They don't have at home. So they're left just to their own device. They join gangs. They drop out of school. This has nothing to do. Here's why it's not racial. When people say, why do you bring up, that sounds like a race, you sound like a racist. No, it's not racial. It's environmental.
Right.
Okay? Because I know many black kids who are 12 to 30 years old who are wonderful,
right,
responsible kids. Guess what they have in common?
Right.
They have
mom and dad at home.
They have a mom and dad at home.
Right.
So
the flip side is that increasingly in white communities, you have absent dads, and you're starting to see the same pathologies.
Right.
It has nothing to do with race.
It's just that the black community is 20 years ahead.
Right.
Because the Great Society of Lyndon Johnson, who set the course on destroying the black family because of the welfare dependency.
Yeah, because
and having multiple babies out of wedlock and getting paid for it.
The black community in this country, up until the 60s with the Great Society,
right,
they had thriving businesses, banks.
Yeah, the family was intact.
Family was intact, and it began to be eroded by welfare, which wed the mother of the children to the government rather than the father.
So you have a girl, 14, 15, 16 years old, and she gets pregnant, right? Or pregnant more than once. Likelihood of they're going to drop out of school.
Right.
Well, they drop out of school, guess what they're going to be? They're going to be in poverty. Right? So it's a vicious cycle.
Right.
So it has nothing to do with inherently with somebody's ethnicity or their race.
Because you know who does better than any other ethnic group in this country?
The Asians.
Asians.
Yeah, and why is that? Their families are all intact.
Absolutely,
and they value
family-oriented.
education.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, anyway, these big cities are so dangerous now, Steve. I mean, brazen criminal activity going on, and you combine that, Steve, with the George Soros-funded DAs, the defund the police movement. You have a recipe for disaster, and that's what we're seeing.
We are. These kids for years have been pumped in with the narrative that they are victims and that they are being oppressed, and they get angry and they get bitter, and then they act out. They think that this is my payback. This is my reparations. White man's never going to give me cash, so this is what I'm taking, and they justify it, and that's why you're seeing it.
Well, it's a breakdown in moral values. Yeah. So anyway, but I'm going to tell you, these drivers, they're going to be told, we're not going to that neighborhood. Or this neighborhood.
Or they're going to tell FedEx or UPS, I'm not going.
Right.
You send somebody
else or I'll quit.
I think and listen, black drivers are going to be just as reticent to go to these areas as anyone. The video you're talking about with the UPS driver, it was a black woman.
Right.
It's a hard-working
these
person.
criminals don't care.
Right. So they're not going to be any more protected than anybody else.
No. And they're think about how vulnerable you are. If you're a driver of a truck and you're the only one, and first of all, your doors are open.
Right.
You're driving around delivering packages. These thieves, if they wait for you, they know. Well, then you got the whole problem with in these big cities. I keep saying that. It sounds like but I'm a big city racist. Can you be that?
You mean you're opposed to big cities?
Yeah, whatever that is, whatever that term is. But I mean, you got your porch thieves, pirates, right?
Right.
So they wait for the truck to deliver, and then they go steal it off the porch.
And just so everyone knows that we're not racist, most of the videos I see of the porch pirates are white people.
Right. Yeah.
So there is a widespread breakdown in morality in our country, and most of the crystal meth addicts I see are white people. So we're just talking turkey. Everybody knows what's going on, and it's bad.
Yeah. All right, Steve. Next story.
Tensions rising on the Hill. Our members of Congress have been quarreling, and when I say quarreling, I don't mean just like yelling at each other. This happened in a hearing yesterday, and it was between a union boss and between him and a senator. The senator is from Oklahoma, Markwayne Mullen, and the union boss was Sean O'Brien. They were having a debate, and they had. This was in the Committee on Education, Labor and Pension. Anyway, the two had crossed swords before in social media. They didn't like each other, and it came to a head here. So what you're going to hear is the interaction between the two, and
the pleasantries.
The pleasantries between the two, and then you're going to hear Markwayne Mullen, I believe, explaining it. Oh no, actually, that's the other. Yeah, this is just Mullen and the Teamster, Senator Mullen and Sean O'Brien getting into the hearing. They're talking about he started out talking about the tweets that were made against him. Go ahead. I'm sorry, cut 3.
Pretends like he's self-made. What a clown. Fraud. Always has been, always will be. Quit the tough guy act in these Senate hearings. You know where to find me. Any place, anytime, cowboy. Sir, this is a time, this is a place. If you want to run your mouth, we can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on.
Big guy.
Oh, stop it.
Is that your solution,
Hold it. No, sit down. Sit down. Okay. You're a United States Senator. Sit down.
Active.
Oh, okay.
Sit down, please.
All right.
Can I respond? Mr.
Hold it. If we can, no, I have the mic.
said.
I'm sorry.
This is
Hold
what
it.
he said.
You'll have your time.
Okay.
Can I respond?
Oh, no, you can't. This is a hearing.
Bernie Sanders there making peace or trying to get between the two of them.
The first of that was the senator
reading
from Oklahoma reading what this guy who was sitting in front of them had been saying about him on the internet, right?
Yes.
Like tweets or whatever.
Right.
So he was basically saying, say it to my face. And then they got into, you want to settle this? We'll settle this right now.
Right now, bud. Outside, man.
I do want to say that my grandkids would all tell me we don't say the B word. So anybody who was offended by a U.S. senator, I don't know, but he's going to be offended by a Teamster boss.
Stand your up.
Yeah, that's right. So
stand your rear end.
We do apologize if that was offensive to anyone.
You're allowed to say rear end?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
I just, listen, I do what my grandkids tell me.
Stand your rear end up?
Yeah. So, listen, that's just testosterone speaking, and that's male ego.
Yeah.
So the senator should not have brought the tweet up because it left him nowhere else to go but to try to start a fight.
This is a union boss?
It's a union boss, but Senator is a former MMA fighter, so I think he
probably would have dumped the guy on his head, but he only was forced into that because he read the tweet. He got his dander up because this is what the guy tweeted.
Right.
He should have tweeted back, said it on the Senate floor. He should have tweeted back and said, "Come down to the gym, and we'll
meet me out in front of the Lincoln Memorial."
Yes.
Let's get ready to rumble, huh?
You know somebody about $1,000.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
My pleasure.
Ed.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks to Fred Jackson, Jan Markell, Brent Crayley, our producer. And we hope you have a wonderful Wednesday afternoon, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. You know, one of the most significant men in human history